Obi Obadike, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Lisa. Looking
I'm
forward
super
to sharing whatever I can share to help your viewers and listeners.
I'm sure you'll drop a lot of knowledge for us today, and I'm really excited to talk about all things physique enhancement, weight loss, etc. But to start off with, I would love to hear from you. What's the number one thing you're excited for our listeners to learn today?
I think probably the biggest thing is not to be so hard on themselves and to understand that what you're capable of accomplishing is really based off of your DNA, your genetics. I think people don't realize that the genetic lottery will dictate the type of success that you can have and what you can look like. And so, my hope is just to be able to educate people that, if you can achieve your God given potential based off of what God has given you genetically, DNA wise, then you've succeeded. And sometimes your genetic lottery may not be the other person who looks like $1 million. So,
Well, I think that's a really important message, and to be honest, not enough people talk about that. And I think people take that two ways. They might say, "Oh, my DNA is limiting me anyway." You know, most people in my family are a little bit overweight, or people are not that gifted when it comes to physical performance, and they use it as an excuse. And I'm certain that that's not how you're intending it. You're just saying, "Hey, everyone has their own specific." Talents and gifts, and even though you might not be 7 feet tall and have the best potential for bodybuilding or whatever, you have your personal upper limit that you can always strive for.
100%. Yeah. Definitely not using it as an excuse, but also it's like not everyone can be a professional athlete. Not everyone can play in the NBA. And not everyone's going to be able to step on a Mr. Olympia or Mrs. Olympia stage.
For
So that's what
sure.
I mean. There are
Absolutely.
levels and limits to this whole physique thing.
Absolutely. Even from a mental perspective, I believe. I mean, DNA when it comes to physique is the one thing, but DNA when it comes to how our minds are programmed and how far we can push our own limits, I think that that's another thing we can certainly work on. But yes,
Sure.
I would also love to hear from you, Obi, how you got into physique coaching, and of course, what brought you to co-writing a book, what brought you to becoming a television host, and so on.
Sure. Well, I've always had an affinity for fitness. I've always had an affinity for being in shape, getting in the best shape possible, being an athlete in high school, college, running track and playing basketball. So, but I never really understood how I can get in the industry and make a difference and make a decent living and be able to help others. So, my path was, maybe a little bit different from the everyday average coach. Is before social media exploded, before YouTube exploded, and so we're talking like this. There were fitness magazines, and fitness magazines were everything in terms of how the fitness enthusiasts obtain their content. And if you weren't in a fitness magazine and you were a fitness or health and wellness professional, you really didn't exist. No one really knew who you were. And so I kind of came in the print media era of where I was able to get in magazines, grace fitness magazine covers. And so that gave me that national credibility that, oh, wow, I'd like to work with that guy. Or, oh, I'd like to have that person help me get in shape. And so being on a magazine cover and then also being a columnist for that magazine, I was a little bit different where I wanted to be on the magazine cover and in the magazines to get that physique credibility, but I also had a passion to want to be a writer. And so any magazine that I got up the opportunity to get on the cover, I always would, talk to the editor and say, can I provide an article? Can I be a columnist? So it was like a double whammy effect where you got the guy on the cover and inside the magazine, and then also he was a columnist and writer for that respective magazine. So that really gave me that national and international notoriety. And so that truly helped me to be able to give me a tremendous amount of awareness and influence, and helped me to be able to work with a lot of big name celebrities, and allowed them to, after working with them and them trusting me, to want to, maybe do a book with them, so anyway, that's kind of how my path in the fitness industry was. This cover guy that was on all these magazine covers all over the world, but he was also a columnist and writer. And also, I think bodybuilding.com had a good influence and impact on my name and notoriety and credibility. Being a columnist, I had a fat loss column called, I think, Ask the Rip Dude. I did not make that name up, by the way. But so that, being a columnist on that site, and I don't know if it still is, but for many years it was the number one fitness internet site in the world. I think it still might be, like, over 30 million unique visitors per month. So being on that site, being a writer, being a columnist, on top of being a columnist for some of the most high profile fitness magazines, and you do that over a long period of time, it just kind of ignited me.
Very cool. What I like about that is that it sounds like you did not just want to demonstrate what's possible in the realms of your own physique and inspiring that way, but it also sounds like you wanted to educate the reader on, how to potentially eat if you were going through a contest prep, or how to go through their own weight loss journey or whatever it might have been. So I like that aspect of value sharing. And from what I saw um, about your book, which is titled The Cut for the listeners, Sculpting Our Best Body, I would love to hear kind of like if you could give us a broad overview in terms of maybe chapters or content of this book, and then maybe some practical tips how the listener can apply this sculpting their best body for themselves.
Sure. Well, I think that how the book kind of came about, I was working with a celebrity actor named Morris Chestnut, and I helped him get in the best shape of his life in 90 days for a movie called The Best Man Holiday. I think this was in 2013, and got him in the best shape of his life. And good time, he was 44 years old. He lost 33 pounds in 12 weeks. And so the success of the movie, the success of the film, everybody, I don't think he's ever looked that lean, that ripped ever in his life, if I've looked at his whole career. So when he was doing press and promoting the movie, everyone was asking, what did you do to look like that? So then he kept crediting me on all of the national press stuff. And then I was just bombarded. Everybody wanted to, work with me and find out what was the recipe, what was the secret recipe for him losing so much weight in quick, such a quick amount of time. So then from there, I said, "Yo, Morris, we need to do a book, like a 12-week transformation book, but not geared towards the celebrity, but geared towards the everyday average person." So I was able to put together, working with him. He was kind of like the motivator in the book, and I was obviously the guy that provided the diet and exercise content. So it was really like a 12-week weight loss transformation book for someone that needed to lose 20 pounds or more, and being able to create a program that someone can follow the book and say, okay, I'm 240 pounds and I need to get on this 1900 calorie a day program. I'm 215 and I need to drop down to 180. I need to get on this 1700 calorie a day program. So it really had like different categories based on how much you weighed body type wise, and you got to pick what calories would be appropriate based on how much you weighed, your body type, excuse me, your fitness goals. And then it was a 12-week, it was a program that basically guided you in terms of following the diet, and then you picking and choosing either a body weight program or, I'm sorry, a home exercise or a gym exercise program. And then we had it where it was beginner, intermediate, advanced. So I really tried to create a program that really could help anybody out that really had a goal of wanting to drop at least, 15 to 20 pounds minimally, up to 40 or more pounds, following a 12-week. Obviously, the CDC, we know a healthy weight loss is 1 to 2 pounds per week. Typically, most people lose the most amount of weight, as you know, the first 7 to 10 days. And more than half of it is water weight. Okay. So that was how the book came about, was really trying to, and we also did debunking diet and exercise myth, which I've done on a lot of national talk shows. I've done that. It always seems to be really popular on some of the more popular myths, like does eating late at night lead to fat gain? No. Does eating carbs late at night lead to fat gain? No. If you consume carbs, are you going to get fat and blow up? No. So things like that, that I think, unfortunately, people still are confused by. And also educating women on weight training, that weight training, you should do it. It is important. You're not going to get bulky. You're not going to look like Lou Ferrigno. You don't produce enough testosterone. So being able to really, it's different, like the fitness world, fitness enthusiast world versus the mainstream world. The mainstream middle America world, their educational level is so below a fitness enthusiast. And so you almost have to like spoon feed small bits of information. You'd be surprised, middle America, what they believe is true. So my objective with the book was to really debunk a lot of the myths that are out there, that are still out there, that people actually believe, which is just so much nonsensical stuff. I think it's even harder now because there's so much information, and everyone seems to be an expert without actually doing the work, or doing all of the necessary educational steps to have the credibility. So it makes it difficult for someone who wants to learn and wants to get in better shape in terms of what to follow, what not to follow, because there's just too much information, and it's really hard for the average person to differentiate between fact versus fiction.
Again, I love how applicable you're making things for the wide population because, as you say, sometimes as fitness professionals, it can be easy to get stuck in our own little bubble thinking, well, everybody knows is important. Everybody knows it's important to build muscle. But especially on that point, I would actually like to dig a little bit deeper on the point of strength training. I mean, most of our listeners are aware of the importance of strength training, especially also for women. But maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on how that's so beneficial for our metabolism as well and for long-term health so that we're, aging in a healthy way.
Sure. Well, I think weight training is, I've always said, I think weight training is the fountain of youth. I think it's the best anti-aging drug out there. When you're lifting weights, it's going to allow you to burn calories after the workout. It's going to help to speed up your resting metabolism. It's going to increase your bone density. Women, particularly after the age of 50, they start to approach osteoporosis. There's a high percentage of women that can get osteoporosis. And why is that you're getting close to menopause time. Your estrogen levels are dropping, so which makes you susceptible to bone fractures. And the best way to heighten your bone density is through weight training, whether it's through dumbbells, free weights, machines, or even body weight, some form of resistance training. Um, I don't think people realize the impact of weight training as far as burning calories after the workout. And a good analogy is basically how I look at weight training from an EPOC effect, which is the acronym for EPOC, is exercise post oxygen consumption. So with EPOC, it's like probably the best analogy for people to understand is like when you're driving a car for let's say 3 4 hours, and then you stop the car. It takes time for that. The car is already heated. It's already really hot, so it takes time for that heated car to get back to being cold. Okay, it's the same thing with weight training. When you're weight training, your body is, and you're done, your body is still very, very warm. And in that process, while it's getting, when it's starting to cool back to its baseline, you're still burning calories, right? You're still burning calories even after the workout. So even when you got done weight training, say you did a really quick 1 hour of really strong weight training, and then you stopped, and then your workout is over, your body is still very, very warm, just like the car. So while it's taking time to get back to its baseline state, you're still burning calories, even when you're not even weight training. And you can look at your smartwatch and you can see that. You'll see the calories burning even when you're not doing nothing. So that's the impact of weight training. Imagine being able to burn calories when you're not doing nothing,
Yeah,
and people need to
who wouldn't
understand.
want that? That's honestly, I mean, something who wouldn't want to be able to eat more while doing nothing, essentially. On top of that, I heard you talk about two other aspects of strength training. Number one, just being that at rest also muscle mass needs more energy than fat mass, right? Just to be maintained as well, or to go through the recovery process, both of this. And the other thing, which again, I don't think enough women think about, is that it is the way for us to shape our body, because many people want to lose weight. They successfully lose weight, but they might lose a large percentage of that coming from lean body mass. And then they just kind of look deflated, like that skinny fat that nobody wants.
Skinny fat, 100%. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, definitely without a doubt. That's why I think like the number on the scale is a very ambiguous number. And that's why I always tell women, the women that I work with, is to, get a body fat test so it could show you what your fat free muscle is and what your body fat is. The number on the scale does not tell the whole picture. Like I can share you a picture of a 5'7", 135-pound woman who is skinny fat and who probably might wear a size 8 and 9, and then I can share you the same 5'7", 155-pound person who's got a significantly more muscle, and probably lower body fat. She probably fits into a size 3 or 4. you
Yeah.
know so it's so much more deeper than the number on the scale. That's why it's so important to get your measurements before and afterwards. It's that muscle, it's just different in terms of how it looks versus someone who might weigh significantly less, but they have less muscle and they have more body fat. So
Very good reminder. Thank you for that. And I have a couple of other questions when it comes to training, or kind of indirectly, because I know you also co-hosted a fitness competition called Sweat Inc., I think, if I'm not
it was
mistaken. Yeah.
Sweat Inc. Right? Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And yeah,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that, especially like the aspect that I'm interested in. And I don't know how much you followed up with the participants later on, but um, were there aspects where you knew or learned if the participants maintained their success, and who didn't maintain their success, and maybe what the differences were be between people that lose the weight successfully and keep it off, and people that maybe lose the weight but then yo-yo right back?
Well, this show was a little bit different. It wasn't like Biggest Loser. So the Sweat Inc. TV show, I co-hosted with Jillian Michaels from Biggest Loser, and Randy Hetrick, the founder and the owner of TRX. So the show was more like the Shark Tank of the fitness industry. And so
Gotcha.
we were co-hosts and judges, and we had fitness entrepreneurs that created these unique fitness inventions. They're different fitness products that they created.
Gotcha.
So they were competing against one another to see who created the next biggest fitness phenomenon. So we had to evaluate each person's fitness equipment invention based off of the is the workout effective? Is it scalable? Is it unique enough? Is it different enough that would appeal to the masses? And they competed for a competition prize of I think $100,000, and then I believe they got to have their product mass. They got to have their product, I believe, scaled in a big box gym. So it really focused more on the entrepreneurs that had some unique
And
fitness product, and then they would obviously, maybe some of them would maybe create their own focus group, and we got to evaluate the focus group as far as the results and how effective it was. So it was a show that was, I feel like it was ahead of its time, and unfortunately was very well produced. It just was poorly marketed, and unfortunately it only lasted a season. But I'm definitely proud of that show, because I think that show was really kind of ahead of its time. Is just to really highlight the what it means to be an entrepreneur as a fitness entrepreneur. And so it just got to really see the roads of trying to be successful in the fitness industry and creating a fitness workout or creating a fitness product that is unique that you think that could appeal to a large amount of people.
Very cool. Well, thank you for clarifying that. I wasn't quite aware of it, but I could imagine, I mean, even if we just think of certain gym equipment that we see, like the assault bike that takes off, or then things like the Peloton bike and app and so on, it is super interesting and fascinating what people come up with out of sheer personal passion for something or out of the need, like throughout the pandemic and so on. But I guess shifting that question then a little bit, I mean, you have worked with so many individuals, famous people, and I'm sure a lot of general population as well. So I guess applying that question to those people, amongst your previous clients, if you think about the people that were able to maintain their weight loss, their success even years later, comparing them to some who probably yo-yoed back, who maybe gained the weight back or resulted back to their old lifestyle, what were some of the differences like in terms of mindset, in terms of just like how what makes one person different from the other and successful that you have observed there?
I think it's just someone that at the end of the day just comes down to the individual that really wants to just make it a lifestyle and is really serious about not doing it for 90 days or a short period of time. They really are just like, I'm done and I really want to keep this lifestyle consistently. And they've adopted it to the point where it's almost like taking a shower and brushing your teeth. It just becomes the lifestyle becomes normal hygiene. And I think that's kind of how I educate people when I work with them is that once they get done working with me, I just want to give them enough knowledge that they can continue it even when they've graduated and they can go on their own. And most people can. They just need the tools. And then once you figure out the tools and you've gotten the tools and you know exactly how to eat, how to exercise, then it's up to you. That's up to you to be able to apply it every day. Some people do need that accountability, someone in front of them and maybe holding them accountable. But I really believe that most people that once they follow a program that's structured, well, they've already showed the discipline that they can do it. So now it's just like applying that discipline and doing it every day beyond the structured program that you've set out for them 60 to 90 days. So the people that fall off are the ones that just they just don't have the discipline to continue within that time frame. And so that's why I feel it's important that when you're trying to create a program, it can't be extreme, because extreme pro when you have an extreme program, most people fail. The statistics and the data is there. So it has to be a program that is extreme moderation is kind of what I use is that it has flexibility and they're not having to eat in this like non-joyous way where it just becomes so monotonous and just very difficult to do. And that's what a lifestyle is. It's not some zero carb extreme diet or someone working out 7 days a week or doing cardio 3 hours a day. That's just ridiculous. So I believe in balance in the way I create my programs and balance in carbs, fats, proteins, and balance in exercise. I think that you can uh, train the entire body in 4 days. I really believe that. And the older I get, the more I realize how much rest and recovery is just as important as working out. You need a couple of days for your body to recover from the workout. So it's the whole thing, no pain, no gain. Like, well, maybe if you're trying to compete, trying to get ready for the Olympics or something. But from a perspective of just health and wellness and being healthy and being fit, I don't think that's really necessary. Yes, you do want to push yourself, but not to the point where you exhaust yourself, where you could potentially get an injury or you're just always sore. You can't lift your arm up above your head. That's just not necessary.
I honestly couldn't agree more on literally everything that you said. I think it's so beautiful how you're kind of calling it extreme moderation because, yes, of course, the client needs to see results. They need to be motivated and be kept motivated. If you're always just like, oh, this is moderate and we're aiming for like half a pound a month to lose, the person's gonna be like, screw this, I'm gonna go with the next person who's promising me, 10 pounds in 4 weeks, right? And so you do need to give them the results and keep the person motivated, but it needs to be, like you said, 100% somewhat enjoyable. Yes, there needs to be some restriction. It's not always going to be easy. You're going to feel hungry and so on, sure. But at the same time, if you can never go out for dinner with your partner, if you can never have a piece of cake or chocolate or something like that, and you get into this whole all or nothing thinking, not only is that not sustainable, it's also really bad for your relationship with food and yeah, you're not going to stick with it. So I truly, truly love what you said there. And I guess going back to the beginning point of kind of talking a little bit about DNA and how we do naturally have a little bit of a ceiling. Like personally, everybody has their own natural limit. And so if someone listening to this now thinks, how can I determine if I have already achieved my maximum, or how can I, like, is it my hormones that's preventing me, or maybe I am believing that everybody in my family is big. Like, how do we deal and apply this information that really DNA does determine a lot for us?
Yeah, you know what? I think that I think if you're on any structured program to get in the best shape possible, you're going to know what your plateau and your ceiling is, which means that at some point in time, if someone's creating a program that puts you in a deficit that is not too extreme, you're going to know there's going to be a point where you're not going to be able to lose any more body fat. It's like, for example, um, I feel like I believe that if you're a fitness enthusiast and you've worked out, I believe the studies have shown that if you've worked out for, I believe, maybe 8 to 10 years consistently, they say that that is really where you've hit your genetic potential in terms of how much muscle that you can gain if you've worked out for at least up to like 8 to 10 years. So there is a period if you're consistent where and you're doing all the right things that you hit your ceiling. It's like for myself, I'll use myself as an example. I think I'm about 6'2", and I think the heaviest that I've probably been while still maintaining, under 10% body fat is probably between maybe 217, 28, between 217, 220. So I know that once that's my limit on staying under 10%, while still retaining my amount of muscle, having full abs and all that other stuff. So I know that once I get above 220, I don't think that I can stay under 10% body fat. That's kind of like my limit, right? I know I can't get any better than this is basically what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah.
you're going to know if you've been working out consistently up to about that 8 to 10 year time frame, eating right, exercising, what your potential is. Okay, what your ceiling is. I mean, you can't get any better. You can't gain any more muscle, and if you do gain more muscle, there's going to be fat gain associated with it. I'm not saying you can't gain muscle. You can, but there's going to be fat gain with it. So, what is that ceiling? And what is the most amount of muscle you can gain while still maintaining relatively low to moderate body fat, where you're still looking athletic and you're still looking lean? And everyone has that ceiling. I can give you examples of some people that they can't get to a point of having their body fat where you could see abs without looking anorexic. They don't have the DNA. They don't have the genetics. I know of a couple girls that I've worked with that if they got there, they're gonna look like Skeletor. You know what I mean? They're gonna look all bony in the face. They don't have the genetics. Where someone else could walk around with abs with not having to do any dieting. That's genetics. That's the difference. It sucks. It's good for if you've got great genetics. God bless you. If you don't have the greatest, it does suck because you're looking at other people on social media like, God, I want to look like that. I want to have my butt this high. I want to have this. I want to have that. But
Mhm.
you just may not have the genetics. And then also number two, you don't even know what they're doing. You have no
That's a
idea what they're doing,
very,
what they're
very good
taking.
point. Yes.
There's so many different variables, and I think that social media has it's affected a lot of people that want to get healthy and fit in a negative way because they're comparing themselves to what they see out there. And there's so many different variables. There's genetics. There's you don't know if they're taking PEDs. You don't know if they're what they're doing, what type of help they're getting. You don't know if they've gotten surgery to remove this and remove that or whatever. So that's why I feel like social media is it's not. I don't think that it's the most positive thing because it can really affect with people's minds in terms of what they almost start to think that there's something wrong with them because they're using what they see outside as this visual thing that is like almost like it's why does that person look like that? It's an unattainable thing, you know. I
Yeah.
always just tell people I get people in the industry that I'm always like the natty or natural the natty or not detector. People be messaging me, hey, is this person natural or not? I'll be like, nope. I would call it out because I know. I could tell. Look at the texture, the skin. It's not very difficult when you've been in this industry for a while. There's some people that are outliers, genetic freaks, but I could tell right away, who
Right.
is and who isn't.
Very
Anyway,
interesting. No, I have several thoughts on this. So, firstly, I think it's great how you're just setting realistic expectations because if clients have unrealistic expectations, they're going to be disappointed at some point. So, it is very important to communicate honestly and openly. And what more than anything, what I believe I hear you say is that people should only compare themselves with themselves and try to be a better version of themselves tomorrow
thank
than
you.
they are today
You
or
nailed it.
yesterday.
You
And
nailed it.
I guess on top of that, also, we need to consider our current states of life. So I think sometimes clients come to us and they say, I want to have my body from when I was 20. Well, now you're 45 and you've had three kids and so on, being like, that's not realistic. You worked out 6 times per week then. Your body responded very differently then. We need to adjust to your current state of life, and we can still achieve your current possible best. Strive for that in your way, and just put on the blinders, not look at what that person is doing. Because exactly like you're saying, there are many influencers out there that claim to be doing a 3 times per week body weight training of 20 minutes a week, a session, and in reality, they themselves are doing 6 sessions plus of gym-based training plus some high rocks racing and whatnot. So like really, I really appreciate your honesty and just how you're candid about
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's some of these influencers. There's a guy you may even know. I'm not gonna get put his name out, but there's a guy who's uh very I guess he's very popular on YouTube and he's jacked and he's always doing exercises, doing these like insanity exercises like cardiovascular exercises, high knees and different body weight stuff. And he basically makes it seem like he got that body from just doing all these cardiovascular exercises. And it's not like he's not providing great content, but there's no way on God's green earth that he got that body just doing that. In fact, he's not even natural. He's not natural at all. He's just not. So
right.
that's kind of and I can see it. You probably could see it, but the everyday average fitness enthusiast will believe that. So I think that that's why I really have issues with the word influencer. I just don't even know what the hell that means, but that's another story in
Well,
itself.
Obi, I do have a question for you personally also, because I think you're a beautiful role model or picture of exactly what you're preaching in the sense of something needs to be consistent. Someone needs, it matters a lot more what you're doing in the long run than just doing some fancy program short term and advertising for that. From what I have seen on your page and what I believe I've learned about you is you've been able to maintain a rather lean, healthy physique for many, many, many years, and you're demonstrating that to your clients. So for people, the people listening, in your opinion, what is the key to be lifestyle lean? So not super shredded, stepping on stage kind of lean, but also just staying at this weight without huge gains in betweens and so on. What are some three practical things in terms of diet that you would recommend, and maybe also training, but mostly diet I'm interested in.
Yeah, I think for me is I don't really eat a large amount of food. I would be surprised if I would be surprised if I got more than 2,000 calories a day. I do feel like how I eat is I'm a very boring eater. I'm always eating chicken and vegetables almost every day. And then maybe nuts as a snack, and then I'll have I'll eat my fruit, my nuts and my fruit as like a mid-afternoon snack. Me personally, I'm not a big breakfast person, but that's just me personally. I do that the little bit of intermittent fasting where my first meal is my lunchtime. So I think the way I eat, getting my protein, my carb, and my healthy fats with pretty much every meal. I feel like that template, that consistent staple, is what allows me to help me to maintain low body fat. And then also how I exercise, working out about 4 days a week. Sometimes I might work out five, but I always seem 4 days a week works out well for me. Do my lift weights maybe about 45 minutes to an hour, and then I'll do my cardiovascular hit like 25 to 30 minutes. And that's it. I feel like less is more for me, but I think it's unfair to use myself as an example because I've been doing it, for more than half of my life. And so what helps us, as you know, is the base that we've created such a strong base over such a long period of time. It protects us and helps us, God forbid, if we have an injury or sickness. I'll use an example. So I had a weird shoulder injury summer of last year. I don't know what happened. It didn't tear anything, but it was just a soft tissue injury, and I couldn't lift my left arm above my head. So I really couldn't work out for almost 4 months. I don't think that's ever happened to me. 4 months, I didn't do anything. And I could have probably walked, but I said, let me just use myself as a case study. I'm kind of interested. I would never have had the guts to do that 20 years ago. I would have probably still worked out being so vain, right? But I said, I'm kind of over that now. So let me just use this as a case study. I'm not going to work out for 4 months. I'm not going to work out. I didn't know it was going to be that long. So I said, I'm not going to work out until my body is ready to actually exercise my shoulder. So 4 months, I didn't do any exercise. I was monitoring my diet in terms of I probably ate less knowing that I wasn't able to burn anything. And I was basically for 4 months and, I was in a sedentary lifestyle, just sitting in front of my laptop, working and stuff. So I took a picture before that happened, and then I took a picture after. And there wasn't that much of a difference, surprisingly. I did see a little bit of atrophy, but I posted it on social media, and everyone was like shocked. They were like, "Whoa, like you still lean, you still got abs." But the diet is what salvaged me. If I just went for 4 months and just ate garbage, right, and just ate junk food and fast food or whatever for 4 months and just consumed 6,000 calories, that wouldn't have looked like that.
Yeah,
Yes, I do have genetics, but I'm not from Krypton. I'm not Kryptonian. You know what I mean? And so there's a thing called thermodynamics. The calories, none of us are immune to what can happen if you consume more calories than you burn,
hmm,
So
yeah,
I understood that. So because I wasn't working, I said I got to really be mindful of what I ate. I was probably even more mindful, but it was an interesting case study. And
for
what that means is that for that 4 months, the reason why I didn't have that much of a drop off visually speaking, was because the base, because of how putting all that time in over for so many years, it carried me. lean muscle mass wise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. The research that I have seen completely reflects what you're saying in the sense that maintaining a muscle mass that you've built is so much easier than people think on, 3 times per week, 2 times per week, even sometimes, or even not doing anything for a certain amount of time. Then the building process, that's of course the harder part. And that's why I think it's so important to continue to teach that this whole stop and go, like where people go into these extremes and then they stop again
Yo-yos.
for what that is the hardest thing for the body, for the mind, for anything. So once you've created that momentum, maintaining it is so much easier. And I guess just to highlight a couple of the points that you said there, I think for the listener to take away is long term also the fiber in your diet, so your vegetables and your fruit, the protein in your diet, those two, it sounds like that's really the main thing that you're attributing the majority of your long term success to, on top of also, you said you're a pretty simple person or your food is pretty simple. And again, from what I see, the research supports that people that successfully maintain a reasonably lean body, they eat the same meals most of the time. It doesn't mean you can't have
Most of the time.
variety or you shouldn't, but
Yeah.
having two, three staple breakfasts, having two, three staple lunches or whatever, and playing a little bit of mix and match with your protein sources and vegetables that are in season and so on. But don't try to get overly fancy and having like meal recipes with 35 ingredients, 20 of which you can't even pronounce, and it needs an hour of prep. Like it's, who has the time for that? Nobody really. And if you try to do that, that's when you get deterred and when you get demotivated because it feels so hard. So I just wanted to highlight these 3 points because I think they're quite relevant for the listener if they want to achieve long-term success for themselves. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I would say that the person that's able to, this is just my observation, the person that's consistently looking lean and fit, um, through their 30s, through their 40s, and through their 50s. If I would bet, and I would bet everything, that they are a boring eater, which means that they eat the same things over and over again. So when I tell this to anyone who I'm going out with or anything like that, like, look, I am not eating to entertain you. I'm going to be my boring eater, but the result of that is I'm going to be able to maintain the same shape I had, when I was 25. And I feel like I'm uh, probably in better shape aesthetically than when I was in my 20s because I feel like I'm more educated in terms of what to eat and how to exercise appropriately.
Awesome. I love that. I think it's a really, really valuable takeaway. And just in general, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. I will obviously make sure to drop your links and handles in the show notes, more specifically also to your beautiful book that you have co-written. So, Obi, thank you so much for your time. It was a real pleasure having you on today.
Thanks a lot, Lisa. I appreciate you having me on your podcast. Thank you so much.